Okay, so today we are going to be talking about teaching our students in the distracted world that we have right now. I'm going to ask you, while we are together, if you can, at least in 10-minute segments, try to give me your attention, right? Attention is an important, well, you're going to see it's a skill and it's a gift that we give each other. And so I'm going to ask you just at least about 10 minutes at a time, give me your attention, and then I'm going to break it up and we're going to have time to talk to each other. And while you're doing that, you can look at your email or your text or whatever you need to do. But I just want to let you know, I feel your pain. This is such an important topic right now. I was heartbroken yesterday when I found out our ANS meeting was in person and I couldn't grade my discussion post during the meeting while I'm sitting behind a camera on Zoom. So the struggle with distraction is real. Okay, so this workshop today is based on the work by James Lang. And I don't know if you know him, but he's a writer, a regular writer about issues related to teaching in the Chronicle of Higher Ed. He's done a number of books. He's a teaching center director at Assumption College. And his book from 2020 that he finished right before the shutdown is called Distracted: Why Students Can't Focus and What You Can Do About It. So in his introduction to this book, he talks a lot about being in shutdown, right? So he just finished the manuscript for the book and then the shutdown happened. And so he kind of updates it in the introduction. It's really, really good. His focus, which is what I really appreciate and why I want to talk about his stuff, his focus is on what teachers can actually do about this. So not just complaining about students being distracted. Like, let's get that out of our system now. Everybody in your mind, think about how annoying it is that students are distracted by their phones, right? And now everybody, pretend like you're the dean and you're annoyed by how distracted we are by our emails, right? Whatever. But kind of get that out of your mind. This isn't about getting rid of the distractions. It's about building attention skills in our classrooms, right? Because the distractions are here to stay. And they've always been here. They've always been here. So it's about building the skills in our classrooms. And like I said, we are all distracted. All of us. We're distracted all the time in modern life. Attention is not the norm. Like, this is one thing that he really emphasizes in the book, and neuroscientists emphasize. Our brains aren't set up for sustained attention, right? Our brains react to novelty and react to new things. This is how we've adapted. And so even neurologically, our attention is not the norm. Instead, it's a skill that we hone. Okay, it's a skill that we hone, and it's a skill that takes effort. It does not come automatically. It takes effort. And because we have gone through our education, we found a discipline we're passionate about. We've done our dissertations. We've sat in graduate classes. We have honed these skills. Our students have not. And Lang argues in his book that we need to, in our classes, help them hone these skills, help them develop these skills. That should be one of our objectives along with content. That they need this. And now, of course, I know it's not post-COVID, but post the beginning of COVID, we need to do it even more, because they struggled with it before and now super struggling with it. And I know you've seen it in your classes. Attention is also a limited cognitive resource. This is why I kind of said, if you can just hang with me for 10 minutes, I'm going to kind of like break us up and then, or pause so that we can talk and have something a little interactive, because you cannot sustain attention forever until you have the skill and you can get in flow and the other things that psychologists talk about. But that takes a while, right? Our attention is limited. And it's our greatest gift. Bart Everson is on this workshop, and we have bi-weekly meetings, and one thing he often says at the end of them is, thank you for the gift of your time. Time is an important gift. Thank you for this time. And giving someone absolute attention, not checking the emails, not looking at your camera when they're in the middle, or your phone when they're in the middle of a sentence. Like, giving somebody's attention is a really great gift. So here's what I want you to think about right now, where you are. Take a little discussion pause. You can either put it in the chat, or we're small enough, you can unmute and just kind of say it. But when do you give full attention? Hey, Syed, come on in. This is it.
Okay, I'm getting scared. I'm going.
I know. Sorry, our in-person guest just came.
Oh,
Syed!
oh.
Everybody else is online.
But I'll get back on Zoom.
Yeah, no. Please be with me. I need somebody to talk to in this video.
Yes, indeed. Lord have mercy.
And we have snacks and drinks. We have snacks and drinks so everybody comes in person. You don't need to, I can move this. You don't need to get on your computer. Okay, so think about this real quick. What's the time when you really give attention?
When my kids call me, my grown-up kids, I think I hear every word they say and remember it.
Was that Alyssa?
That was Alyssa, iPad.
Tell Alyssa iPad, that's funny. Tell me, how come? How come you give, so when they're calling you, give them attention, how come?
They're important. They're not overly verbose. I'm motivated.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And if they're giving you their attention by calling you want to give it back, right?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. So yeah, good, because you want it to happen again. Somebody else. Or Janice, if you want to read some things in the chat. I should have said Janice is the voice of the chat today, so you can chat at Janice and she'll be your voice.
I can tell you like situation. If I'm in like a small group in person, I find that I am paying more attention. Like if I can fade into the crowd, that's when I find myself like that. I can get away with being distracted, I guess, if that's the way to put it. But as like a specific situation, when students come and tell me about they're really upset about organic and their life, and they're never going to go to pharmacy school, and I find that I would have never had the courage to talk to a professor in college like that, and so I think it's taken a lot for them to do that. And I don't answer my phone or obviously, anything like that.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad you mentioned being not being in such a big crowd, right? Not being such a big crowd. We're going to come back to that as far as classroom goes. Let's do one more before we move on.
Bart shared in the chat. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, he says, I think in the act of writing, one of the few times when his attention might be truly focused for a short while.
Nice. Yes, getting into that, getting into writing, getting into your whatever your scholarly activity is. Absolutely. Getting in that flow. If we're enjoying it and it's meeting our needs, getting in that flow. All right. So we're all distracted. I want to start with our own distractions so that we can then be more compassionate as we talk about students' distractions and how we can deal with them in the classroom, because James Lang does give us really concrete advice here. All right. Before I do this, though, I've got a demo I want to share with you. All right. And say you can watch it here on this screen here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a video. So everybody you're going to have to attend. I'm asking for your attention. And I want you to watch this video. And that's all. Just give it your attention. Pay attention.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
But how did you know?
Madam, as any horticulturist will tell you, one does not plant petunias until May is out. Take her away.
That's right, madam.
It's just a matter of observation. The real question is, how observant were you?
And action.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
All right. All right. Let me come back. Let me stop share real quick. Okay. How many of you saw all those changes? Did anybody see any of them? I think I see Stacy said 2.
Yeah, alum says she did not catch that and she was paying attention.
Yep. All right, let me close this. Share screen. All right, now sorry folks, let me go to the from current slide. Okay. All right, so yes, I'm sorry, I keep getting the internet is unstable message here. So sorry if I go in and out, please hang with me if you can. Okay, so even when you're paying attention, it is hard to take care of everything, right? This is the way avoid all the distractions. This is the way our brain works. It's a limited cognitive resource, attention. We cannot pay attention to everything. If I was paying attention to everything right this moment, I would feel the ground under my feet. I'd feel my clothes on my skin. I would smell the snacks. I would, it would be overwhelming. Okay, so we have to focus our attention. And that focused attention is a skill James Lane is talking about. Stacy, though, before we move on, which 2, I think I saw on the screen, you said you noticed 2. Which 2 changes did you notice?
The bear and the coat of armor, and then the flowers were different.
Okay.
That was it. That's the only thing I noticed.
They even changed the dead guy on the floor. The dead guy on the floor. It's a great video. I'll put this on the resource page we're going to build for this workshop. I'll put that on there because it's a great video to show students in class and talk about paying attention while they study. You can study for hours and hours and hours, but if you're mainly looking at social media while you're studying, it's no better than that in terms of retention. Okay, so Genesis is okay. So here, all right. So this is James Lang. I want just to read this to you just real quick because this is his what he wants people to take away from this book we're about to talk about. He says the primary idea I want people to take away is a simple one. Instead of worrying about the distractions that interfere with learning, we should be focused on how we can help cultivate and sustain attention in the classroom. That should be our focus because the distractors aren't going anywhere. And they've been around forever. And attention is an achievement. Okay, it's an achievement, it's a skill, not something we should take for granted. Since learning depends upon attention, it should have a prominent place in the way in which we think about our courses in our classroom. So just like at the beginning of a semester, when we talk about what are our readings going to be, what are our learning objectives going to be, well, are we going to have transparent assignments, et cetera, he says we should also say how we're going to keep students' attention and build students' attention, because just complaining about not having it is not quite enough. And when he speaks on this book, he talks about, he has this quote from Aristotle, like, Aristotle back in the day, complaining about his students' attention. Okay, so what does he say we can do about it? What does he say we can do about it? He's got 6 main tips and then one kind of closing point that I want to cover. And when I started digging around in this book this semester, and when I first came across it this summer, I was really surprised by how basic some of these tips are, that there's evidence it's related to attention. So you're going to see some of these things and go, what? But these are important for a lot of things, but important for attention. So first is build a classroom community. And he calls this communities of attention. Now, and Stacy said it perfectly in her example. If we feel like we're one in the crowd, then we are not going to pay as much attention as if we are, feel noticed. Think about the big faculty meetings we have on Zoom, where you have to go 9 pages in. There's only like half a page of people with their videos on, and then 9 pages in of people. Okay, that's a really bad situation to have attention. So one thing he says is come to class early and converse with students. There is data from the Teaching of Psychology journal. There's data that came out right before I started at Xavier. It was so cool. It was right before I started at Xavier, and it was data showing that coming to class, because typical coming to class, right? We rush in from our thing, we scramble with the computer and try to do this, and then something doesn't work, and so then and then we do it again, and then finally we look up and see students and go, okay, let's get started, right? There's data that shows that coming to class, getting that set up, and then talking to students before class has an impact on student learning. And then what he's saying is it has an impact on it via their attention. That if you build this community, they're going to pay more attention. And he argues, bring other students in. Don't just converse one-on-one, but bring other students in. I read this study, like I said, right before I started here at Xavier. And so I almost without exception, of course, there's crazy days, but almost without exception, get into my classroom 10 minutes early, get my stuff, and then just start talking to students. What did you do this weekend? And then get them talking with each other. So did you do anything this weekend too? And then what did you do? Or I don't know, that's a neat shirt. Tell me about your purse, whatever I want to do. It felt really awkward for about, I would say 4 weeks, a month. And now I can't imagine it any other way. It doesn't feel awkward at all. And what happens is now the students, those kind of go-getter students, they come to class early because they know I'm going to be there to chit chat. Learn names. Again, how many times have you seen in some workshop, learn students' names, learn their names and learn how to pronounce them? You've seen this over and over in terms of like inclusivity and belonging. He says this also builds attention. If I know your name and I see you drifting, I can say it so you can look at this screen. You can do, right? And it draws it back in. It's human nature. It's human nature. It matters to us as well, right? And then he says, move. I can't, because I can only see the last person who talks, so I can't see myself. And I know this tracking is weird and can kind of move different things. So I'm trying not to move too much in this workshop. But in my classroom, I move all around. And I also, now I have the luxury of teaching with active learning furniture. I also move my students around. So we might get into groups at the beginning of class. I say, get in this group. And then for the next group activity, I say, okay, now get cross groups and roll your desk. But have them move. Sitting, our brains are not designed to learn by just sitting and taking in passive knowledge, right? And then the other thing he says for building classroom community is invite student feedback. Ask students, what can I do to help with, to help you be more attentive? I know you're distracted. That's modern world. So what can I do? What helps you? And get student feedback. Again, by being invested in the classroom setup, then they've got more of this sense of community. And he said this communities of attention are the foundation upon which you build with the other things. All right. So somebody, we'll have time for one or two. Somebody, what have you done along these lines to build classroom community you want to share? Again, either unmute or in the chat.
This is Terry Lynn. I like to share.
Okay.
What I've done, I use, I worked in elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. So I use some of the techniques I learned when I was working in international baccalaureate programs, such as after we've discussed something for about 5 to 15 minutes, I'll say, okay, now turn and talk to your neighbor about that. And, and discuss some things that you've discovered, some things you want to know more. And then I'll have them to share, one or two of them to share, and then we build from that. So I use that for attention. And then sometimes I might do a quick write, so they could just write something about what they learned or something about what they want to know more about.
Great. So you're doing like little interactive breaks while at the same time getting them to personalize the class and talk to each other. Excellent.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you.
I like the,
Syed's going to say something?
yeah, I like the interactive PowerPoint presentation. That will force everyone to participate. Like give you multiple choice, but on the first slide,
Yep.
they have the question, and the next one is that is one way.
Yep.
And I like, the new labs what we have in this building.
Mm-hmm.
The chair should be movable. In Xavier stuff, we don't have that flexibility.
I know. Active learning furniture. They should, any classroom that gets built, they should talk to CAT, but that's just my opinion.
That the same setup.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Alam, I think you were going to say something as well.
Yes, I was gonna say that throughout my lectures, I have questions. Like every maybe 10 slides, I'll have a question about the material that we just talked about.
Yep.
And pretty much like I put options that make it hard for the students to pick which one is the right answer so that it can start a conversation. But
yep. Great. That's great. And that's what you're going to do. If you're going to use those kind of questions, they can't be easy, right? They got to be things that demand attention, demand thought. And exactly what Syed said too, like pepper them in there, pepper them in there. Excellent. Thank y'all. Okay. So that's the first thing. He says, foundationally, build a community of attention. Then he said, start building curious attention. And this chapter especially was intriguing to me when I started reading the details, because I thought, yeah, we hear like, get students curious, but how do you do that? And I thought he had some really interesting tips. His first tip is rewrite your course description with passion and purpose. And I teach health psych this semester. Students love this class because we're talking about their health, right? So it's very easy to engage students in this class. I went and looked at this course description and it is boring. It's boring. In this class, students will learn theories of health plan, blah, 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 blah. There is no passion in there. And so then I just started really thinking about what, if I were going to rewrite this, where's the real passion? Think about what you say on day one. And I know, again, I'm sorry, I can't see everybody's name here on my list. But Stacy, I know that when you go into organic chemistry on day one, you speak with passion and promise about what they're going to get from this class. And then if you go look at your course description, does that match it? And I'm not saying rewrite it for the catalog, right? We can't rewrite it for the catalog. But
it's about carbon. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how passionate, but I just looked, I had my syllabus to MedChem, which is the class I developed, which I am super passionate about. And when you said that, I just looked down. I was like, wow, that's boring.
Yes. Yeah. Boring. Thank you for sharing that. Mine too. And I just think it's almost like if we would go and what Lang, again, none of these are my original thoughts, but what Lang argues is that we go back and we look at this. To me, it seems like it's almost like a teaching philosophy, like redoing your teaching philosophy, right? It's kind of like the course philosophy. Where is the passion coming from? If we don't know where the passion and the promise is coming from, we cannot convey it to students. And if we can't convey that to students, then we're already, it's a losing battle right there, right? It's already a losing battle to get their attention. Why would they care if we can't even articulate why they should care? So I'm going to really do that. I'm going to have the course description and I'm going to have my description, because I think that's going to hone my thinking, refine my thinking about it, and be able to do that. So I challenge you to do that, especially my STEM colleagues. Then, and you already, Alam and Syed already, and Terry Land, you as well, I've already kind of mentioned this. Ask questions. Start the class with questions, and then ask questions throughout. And it doesn't even, the question can be, so what? Like, this is the topic today. So what? Why do you think this is included in this class? Why do you think a textbook would spend a chapter talking about this topic? Any kind of question just to engage them. As soon as you ask a question, then now we're partners in learning, and they are personalizing the class. Oh, whoops, that's a typo. That one was a typo. All right, so let me see if there's okay, here, backup one. So we've already talked about that, talked about rewriting. So Stacey mentioned rewriting the course description. Anybody else want to share anything when it comes to cultivating student curiosity that you found effective?
Well, one thing I do, it's not in my syllabus, but one of the classes I teach, on the very first day of class, I give all the students a little form to fill out where they give me some information about themselves. And one of the last question on there is there a scientific question that you've always wanted to know the answer to? And it doesn't have to be a chemistry question. It can be anything. So whatever it is, I'll find the answer for you and we'll work it into the course this semester. And that's been a lot of fun. So, they're waiting to hear their answer to their question or how the class can somehow address the question that they had. So that's been fun.
Nice. Oh, I like that. As part of that, part of the demographic gathering and who are you kind of stuff we get at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. And yeah, because if they can ask their curious questions, then yeah, that's curious. Yeah.
It looks like Faye has her hand raised.
Yes, and so in my environmental health class, it's kind of easy to do current issues. And so I always try to find a current issue that is related to the topic, Jackson, Mississippi, and the water crisis. And so we had a little conversation that was related to a current issue that was related to environmental health.
Wow, that's great. That's great. And it's nice to see you, Faye. I haven't seen you in a while. Thanks for letting me see your face. Yeah. And I think Lane would even say, even letting them come up with some of the environmental issues, themselves would be handy too, right? What are they interested in? Because you never know. Never know.
In my course, we have like questions for thought. Like the questions are designed so that they read the chapter and then everyone might have different opinion, but that will connect with the theme of the chapter. Question for thought is one way we encourage class discussion.
Yep. Questions for thought. And again, think about, and then that linking it to, your job, then their job is to discuss, then you link it back to the class material, right? And that way they're getting to this. They, anything that where they're getting to kind of drive the way it's being discussed, what's being discussed. Now I know that there's still content and fundamentals that need to happen, but it can still happen within the purview of what they are curious about, right? And because you can't force curiosity. I'm really curious about some things in health psych, and I'm not curious about other things in, I don't know, robotics, right? So you can't force curiosity. You have to kind of let it emerge from your students. And Janice, how am I doing in terms of getting frozen? Because everybody else is frozen.
I am hearing you.
Okay.
Alyssa has her hand raised.
Oh, thank you.
I changed it to Alyssa. I was just iPad Terry.
iPad, yeah. Thank you.
I just wanted to say I try before each class, especially since there's a lot of new faces, just to, I work with severe disabilities in speech therapy. So I go around and have everyone introduce themselves, and they're all in different placements, schools, hospitals, and I just let them give me an idea of who in their caseload might have a severe disability, and link it to how we're going to go over it in class, and then do kind of a check every week to see what's happening with specific patients, new issues. And it's for me to learn everybody's name and where they are, and also so they can share with each other and problem solve. And then by the end of the semester, they seem like they're pretty competent. So it helps me too, because I get a bit anxious with all those new smart faces I have. That's it.
Yeah, I understand that. Hey, Alyssa, let me make one. And again, I don't know your content well enough to know if this would work. But to break, like, since you kind of like do that as a weekly kind of like check in about that, one thing, a cool thing you could do is 1 week, have them get in pairs or groups of 3s and share with each other the caseload information you're looking for, and then have them present to the class the other person's stuff. So like Syed, so what can happen is I can say, oh, Syed, how was this? And then we talk and talk and talk. And I'm like, okay, here's what Syed has found and blah, 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 blah. It's a way you can still learn the names.
That is a good idea.
But it gets them sharing a bit more with each other.
And listen, and then they'll listen more, right? That's a good idea.
Yep. So again, I can't remember where that came from. I didn't make that up from
I
scratch.
like all of any idea.
But yeah, it's kind of a nice way to really, and especially if you're doing, because again, one thing is novelty gets our attention, right?
Right.
So if you're doing something regularly, like thought questions regularly, or something regularly, it's nice to even find ways to kind of shake it up. Yep, great.
Yeah, today in my stats class, I was comparing the hurricane cyclone, what happened last week in Pakistan, with Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
So I was telling the students that Hurricane Katrina is nothing in front of what has happened in Pakistan.
Yeah.
It has submerged like 1/3 of Pakistan, and size is so huge and so much damage, and they don't have this technology, and this they are not like they are developing countries. They are not developing countries. So I was telling them that people they don't even have insurance and all that. So I was telling them, when you look at the stats, compare the two damages done to two countries.
Yeah.
Based on the stats.
Yep.
And descriptive statistics, I'm teaching that. Right
Yep.
now. So,
And what a better way, I'm hoping everybody could hear what Said said, but what a better way to bring statistics to life than something like that. Then it gets me curious about stats, not just this dry, boring thing, right? And again, okay, it sounds like, oh my goodness, like we're having to work really hard to get students' attention. And James Lane says, yes, we are. I'm having to work hard right now to keep your attention on Zoom. So let's keep going. He also said then, change it up, structured. This is his structured attention, right? So we've got communities of attention, curious attention, and then structured attention. He says, change it up. And I love this metaphor. He says, teaching is like playwriting. It's like theater. Teaching is like theater. And now I don't mean get up there and act, right? Because sometimes if we tend to act, then we become sage on the stage and we forget about learning. So he doesn't talk about acting. He says, instead, teach like you're a playwright. Okay, teach like you're a director. And he said there's a lot of parallels here. He says in pedagogy it's called signposting, when you kind of tell students. And I did not do a good job signposting. I should today. I meant to add the slide, but anyway, it's called signposting. It's when you just kind of provide a little agenda, just like, okay, give me your attention 10 minutes at a time, then we're going to break it up. Okay, and another 10 minutes we're going to break it up. That way they know, okay, this is what I can expect, and I can do it, right? I can do it. We want to know when we go into the theater, there's going to be 2 acts and I get this in between, or it's going to be 1 90-minute play, or it's going to, we kind of want to, what am I in here for? Because I need to give my attention. How much can I give? This is called signposting in pedagogy. And he said, this is like a program, like the program you get when you go to the theater. Provide an agenda for students, even if it's not structured to the minute, just kind of, here's what we're going to cover today, and here's what we're going to do. And then he says like modules, if you're teaching modules, if you're teaching units, if you've got like, I've got 3 objectives I'm hitting today, whatever your classroom looks like. Those are like the scenes. These are like the scenes in the play. So make each one a little different. Don't just make it one long scene. I'm standing here talking through the whole thing. Change it up, have some variety. So for this module, I'm doing a little bitty mini lecture, then we're going to group work, and then this one I'm going to do this, and then you're going to role play, whatever. And then, and several of you mentioned this, how you use questioning for this. He said, then also use interactive breaks, like an intermission, right? Intermission, recognizing we can't sit here and talk forever. You can't sit here and listen to somebody forever unless they are a great storyteller, right? There are some people, I think I could go listen to Stephen King for a really, really long time. Okay, but he'd be reading to me a novel that was scary, right? Think about the worst conference presentation you've seen and think about the best conference presentation you've seen. Okay, there's different skills in straight lecture, but when it really comes to learning and getting the skills we want students to get, we have to do interactive breaks. So not breaks like, okay, let's take a break and everybody check your phone, but interactive breaks. Let's take a break and now interact. And Teresa, were you going to say something? You popped up on my screen.
Oh, you froze, and I was trying to figure out why you froze. Actually, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Because I'm hardwired in the seminar room and I keep getting internet unstable.
Yeah.
This is insane. Okay, I'm not putting that. We're being recorded. I'm not going to say anymore. Janice, how much did people miss? Do I need to back up anything, or we're okay?
We're okay.
Okay, great. Okay, and so interactive breaks, you can do a lot with like thought questions, group work, Everybody come up with your own example. And the more you teach, right, the more skilled you get at this. Even though I might think I can do 10 minutes of this, and then I can, and then I'm going to play my break. If I see students waning, if I see everybody checking their laps where their phones are, you know, I can say, okay, let's do this now. Let's take a little break now, right, and make it happen. Somebody's sure about this. What have you done or would like to do in terms of structured attention, in terms of how you structure your class, your actual class meeting in terms of this? We've talked about using thought questions as interactive active breaks. Does anybody else have something else they'd like to share?
One thing I do, forgive me, I have my hand up there. If you're teaching science for an hour and 15 minutes, it's really hard for them to pay attention. So I started somewhere in the middle, trying to find a little video that's related to what we're doing that's kind of fun. And then I put it out to the students. I said, you guys get to pick the videos, find a video that's related to what we're doing, and we'll take a little break and we'll watch that little video as a break going through. And then they get engaged in the videos. They spend a lot of time watching all these videos and trying to find something they think the rest of the class is going to like. And it actually makes for a nice little break.
Nice. Oh my goodness. Think about I want to think that's like a triple whammy. Makes for a nice little break, allows them to have some curiosity because they're getting to find it, builds the community because I care what other people think about it. Yeah. Bravo. Good one. What a good thing. And then I imagine that in like social sciences, that would be even easier to do in some ways than sciences, but I'm sure that's an assumption. Okay, so that's structured attention. So let's see what he says next. So again, each one of these are kind of building on each other, right? You build the community, you think about the course and present the course in a way that builds curiosity. Then you structure what you please go plug in. Then you structure what you're going to talk about in this way that maintains attention, right? Then he says, he talks about this, and I want to learn more about this from him, actually. Creating signature attention activities. He calls them, he says, now once you have these assignments, or, you know, this is more about assignments than the classroom structure. He says, think about attention with these assignments or these learning activities and create what he calls signature attention activities. And he talks about building like authentic assignments. You've heard us talking, Kat, about authentic assignments. And so these are assignments that actually not only represent your disciplinary learning objectives, but also build attention. Okay, also build that assignment. And he talks about this art professor at his school, there's a museum close by, and their semester assignment is they have to go look at one piece of art. They have to go visit one piece of art once a week and write about it once a week. Every week, same piece, spend time with it, think about what they're talking about in class, write about it more, and then at the end, how is it different, how they see the art at the end versus at the beginning. And, you know, again, it takes attention and kind of focus on detail over time. He also talks about service learning as an opportunity for signature attention activities, right? If you're doing service learning with, you know, think about like Mike Adams, right? Talking about the chemistry stuff and then actually going to the Cancer Alley and Bucket Brigade. I don't know exactly what he does, but, you know, now students are seeing it and living it. And, you know, it takes a different type of attention there. So he talks about signature attention activities.
That technique, that interview, for example, when I teach management, interview of a manager, operations manager, for example.
Yeah.
Students do that activity, they go and find the operations manager at Costco.
Okay.
And I give them like 10 questions.
Okay. Yeah.
So they get it on the paper or on the phone or email, something like that. So that will connect the textbook in real life.
Yes.
In the same classroom.
Yes.
In the same classroom. That is another interactive way in which students will understand the importance of why am I taking this class.
Yes. Makes it, again, brings it to real life. So having, in a management class, having students interview a manager, like all of a sudden it brings it to life. If you're teaching developmental psychology class, having them talk to students, kids, meet kids and see this. Yes, those kind of things. It's a different type of attention, right? If you're doing an interview than if you're listening to a lecture. All right. And he says the reason why this is so important is because even when we are designing our classes the best we can, that becomes familiar, right? Even when we are doing this best we can, that becomes familiar to students. And Alyssa kind of was saying there, like, okay, now this is the part of class where we report out what we learned, right? So even doing even the things that are best practices become familiar. And so there's this pull, our brains right now, our brains are pulling toward novelty. And this phone, this computer in your pocket, whichever one you have, is an endless source of novelty. I am not. You are not an endless source of novelty. We're going to do the best we can, but we can never compete with that, right? So creating these assignments, but also then shaking them up and doing this. And he says that the signature attention activities are activities designed to show the wonder of the discipline and its connection to their lives. So that's why the interviewing somebody's a perfect example, right? This is connected to what you plan to do in your career, right? This is connected. And he says it also demonstrates the course content in new ways besides just lecture, quiz, question, group work, lecture, quiz, question, group work, whatever throw in whatever, terms you want to use, but, it kind of demonstrates in new ways. And he said, but in order for them to be signature, this is why he emphasizes the signature part, is they have to be a little repetitive. Okay. Otherwise it's a one-shot wonder. Here it is. And some students get it and some students don't. But if you do it over time, then it can be useful. So build them in. Signature attention activities. I don't know. I need to learn more about this. I don't know that I necessarily, I think maybe I have a signature attention activity. Let me hear some of yours and then I'll share mine with you. But we heard interviewing managers in a management course. Anybody else online want to share what you think might be a signature attention activity in your class? Some kind of assignment or something?
Well, we do demonstrations.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell me about those, Teresa. Are students doing them?
Well, in a classroom, you really can't safely generally, but if you can find a place where you can do a demonstration that's fairly dramatic or interesting to them, then that makes it more real to them than something on a piece of paper.
I think he would still say that would be back on the structure part.
Okay.
Right? Structure part, because in this, it's really, my understanding of this is it's really kind of something they're generating. So we give them the opportunity to discover this. We give them the opportunity to demonstrate it. It's something that they are doing more. But I don't know. That'd be a cool question for him. I might have to ask. Yeah. One thing that I do in my health psych course that I think might count, but I'm not sure he would count it or not, is in my health psychology course, we do a 30-day challenge. So the course is structured around these different lifestyle factors that we know contribute to well-being as much as therapies and drugs. Like, we have the data, we know these lifestyle. There I am, Teresa, with my aerobics, right? So we know the data on this. And so the course is centered around those, and they get to pick one of them they want to work, and we do a 30-day challenge around, and so in little groups, they're doing 30-day challenges around nutrition or physical activity or something. And so again, that's a new way to kind of demonstrate it. I don't know. But signature attention activities. Now, he also says his other bit of advice, and notice how each one of this is kind of building, right? Talk about the class structure and then activities within this. And then this is kind of like our global attitudes toward our classes. And he said, be mindful, so model attention, and be compassionate. And he said, writing this book really spawned him to really investigate his own attention. And he says, anybody who teaches in higher ed should do this. Just for a week, notice your own attention. When does it wane? When has it waned during this presentation right now? Because I know that y'all are loving it and it's going great, but I also know that your attention has waned because I've talked too much. So when has it waned? Notice. Was it when you haven't talked? Was it when I didn't ask a thoughtful question? Is it like, okay, you've already read the slides, so I don't need to hear all the details she's going over, you know, she's going too long. Like, notice, and then use that in your own teaching. Apply it to your own teaching. When did you, in the faculty meeting yesterday, when did you tune in and when did you tune out? What sparked your ears up? What did not? How long can you attend to people talking at you? Be honest. You don't have to give answers now. I'm not asking you now. I'm asking you to be honest with yourself, and then apply that to your teaching. Why would you expect your students to do anything different? Just because you have power? Just because we have the power of the grade? Is that why we would expect anything different? It's an interesting exercise. Interesting exercise to do. Think about that and then apply it to your teaching. Who wants to say something about this? I'll make a comment.
Yes, I think this is Elizabeth.
Hey, Elizabeth.
I think that the asking questions is really, really important. I definitely lose attention at faculty meetings when we just get talked at, and there's no chance to interact. Mm-hmm. So in my classes, I don't talk to the student or present a lesson for more than like 5 or 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then they are responsible, like they're accountable. They have to respond to me. You know, I'm just constantly asking questions. And I think in my undergraduate, that was happening a lot because I can remember walking around my campus in undergraduate and going, don't ask me why again, you know, why. And I think that's crucial. So this is I really like what he has to say. Thank you so much for doing this workshop.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for being here. And thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. And even so, Elizabeth's in languages, so that kind of questioning might be, you know, more flowing with the content. But even in a content-heavy STEM course, right, there's still constant ways to ask questions, constant ways just to re-engage. Okay, I just covered this, and so somebody give it back to me in a different word, or different words. Say it in your own words. Somebody else do this, like just kind of constantly, because we can feel it. We can feel it.
Carolyn has her hand raised.
Okay.
Well, so when you tune in and tune out, it just depends on what I'm thinking about, I guess. That causes me to tune in and tune out. I just had an experience today where our department was locked and I was in my office and I'm in the front and the students were knocking, but I was so busy doing what I was doing, I didn't even hear them. But anyways, I just wanted to say something I do too to make sure that the students are engaged and to keep their attention. When I assign them things to read, mm-hmm. I bring it to class and put it on I project it in class and have us to read it, pieces of it together to make sure they understand. So I would just stop like right in the middle of a sentence and say, now think about that. Now, what does this word really mean? And the students are all kind of grappling sometimes. And so what I'll tell them, I say, well, you have those devices right there in front of you. If you're not sure of the meaning, look it up, and then we'll put it in perspective here. And I think some of those things, like that, for me, they really work, because I'll just take a piece of text and we will go through it together. It helps me to make sure that they understand what they're reading too, but they focus really in on it because they don't know which word I guess that she'll focus in on, and I could see them really trying to ensure, like rereading, you can see their eyes moving real fast across the page. So I don't know. I think that's something I do.
Thank you for sharing.
Many things I do, but that's one of them. Mm-hmm. And the last thing I would say, I divide my class up. I still plan for teaching. And I don't know if it's just because I came from, as a speech language pathologist, I worked in schools. And so I plan for teaching. And if I'm going to be there 3 hours, well, our classes are 3 hours for graduate school and undergrad, hour and 15 minutes. I divide the class into some type of quadrant and say, okay, we're going to do this time. We're going to change to this. and then we'll come back to this and we'll do this. And then I'll wrap up at the end. I always save a few minutes to recap what we've learned and see if they have any questions overall.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And the example Terry Lynn just shared, she talked about signposting, right? Telling them this is what's going to happen, giving a quadrant agenda. She's got the structure with variety. Okay, got all that. And Terry Lynn, if you're done, I'm going to ask you to mute because I'm getting some funky feedback.
Don't forget Kahoot, because one of the things the students told me, she doesn't do gaming, so I have to incorporate gaming.
Yep. Yes. Gaming, any of that kind of stuff. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Gaming or any of those kind of things. Terry Lynn's example also made me remember another example of the attention activity that James Lang, signature attention activity that James Lang has in the book, is from a theology class where he has students read the Bible to each other, like really slowly, and kind of process the language. Why would it be written like this? And other religious texts as well. So reading out loud. He also mentions that as an attention activity, because in order to read out loud, we can't have our attention diverted, right? Much like when we're writing, Bart, if your example from the beginning, we can't have our attention diverted. Okay, but being mindful, investigating your own attention, I will challenge you to do this over the next few weeks and then really kind of think about, okay, what do I need to do? And be honest with yourself. What do I need to do in my class to make it better? And then just be compassionate. Be compassionate with your students who are living in this distracted world and yourself. But know that part of our mission at Xavier to build leaders means we need to build their attention. We need to build their attention skills. You cannot be a successful leader, much less for justice, right, if you don't have the ability to attend. So this is a really important skill, I think. Okay, so finally, Lang says, make your class an attention retreat. So those were his 6 tips, the things that we just went through. And again, I will post the slides and everybody can have access to these, and also give you a link to the book. But these are the 6 things. And then he says, in his conclusion, is talk about your class as an attention retreat. Students, and now I'm saying colleagues, we are bombarded constantly with information. When we choose to spend time together, you chose to come to this workshop, and then I tell my students, you chose to show up in class today. Let it be a retreat. Let it be a place where you can shed those distractions. Let your mind be free with this disciplinary information that you care about and that I care about. Let it be a place, a space of retreat from that, so that real learning could happen. So if you think about that as a talking about your classroom as a place to, oh my gosh, you got all these distractions. I know it must be really, really tough. So let this be a place of relaxations. Students respond to that. Students are stressed. Students are meditating these days. Students are doing that mindfulness class that Student Affairs is doing. Like they are feeling the stress from technology and media, even if they can't identify it as such. And so allowing our classes to be this, instead of a place of punishment, put up your phone, don't open your computer, learn. Let it be a place of retreat. We are here for this promise of this wonderful class and all the things you're going to learn. And we are going to let this be a space of attention retreat together. And I love that philosophy. So I'm going to end there. I'm going to see if there's any last questions in these last minutes. I am putting, Saeed, this is the link to the evaluations for the workshop. Janice, I think, is going to drop the link to the workshop in the chat for people there. We do ask this. Last year, our evaluation response was low because we were doing it after the workshop. Anyway, you don't need to hear about that. So what do you think about that? Making your class an attention retreat. Anybody thought about that before? Anybody want to have some last words as we wrap up? Anybody dying to share something before we go?
Yes, and in full disclosure, I am in office hours, and so I decided to take sort of monitor office hours and attend this workshop at the same time.
Thanks for disclosing. I appreciate you, Faye. I'm glad you were here.
And
know
I did put the link to the evaluation in the chat. You can click on either one of those. They'll take you to the form.
Great. And so let me just real quick, I'm going to stop share. Oh. All right, I know we're running out of time. There it is. It came back. Stop share. I just want to see everybody's face one last time. Thank you all so much for your gift of time and attention this afternoon. I hope you found this useful. Like I said, we're going to build the resource page out, and we will get it to everyone so that you'll have access to everything. All right. If you need anything, we're here for you in CAT, and we really, really appreciate your being with us this afternoon as we get used to this hybrid format. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Be safe. Be well.